Good evening. This is Councilor Roby. I'm opening up the Urban Affairs Committee meeting, calling to order. It is Wednesday, June 24th. The meeting was supposed to begin at 7:30. We're a little behind with technical issues. We have one item on our agenda, order number 17881, an application for a special permit by VD Natural LLC, 505 Boston Post Road West, Twinborough Crossing, to operate an adult-use marijuana facility. We are having this meeting tonight with some in chambers and some virtual through the Teams meeting. I have one of my members on the committee virtual, Laura Wagner, and everybody else on the committee is in the chambers. I also have Councilor Irish, who is not on the committee, in chambers, and Samantha Perlman on virtual, along with Councilor Ossing on virtual. So everybody should be able to participate. I will do a brief little, as the new Chair of Urban Affairs, I have a new committee. This is our first special permit. This is the first one for some city councilors. I guess my approach for how this committee will operate will be a little bit different than prior chair was. My idea is that the committee, although every councilor is on the committee, I have 5 voting members. 5 of those voting members are present this evening. I will be focusing on those 5 members to bring a recommendation to the full committee. My attempt is not to make sure that there's consensus from the whole council. I don't think that's the job of this committee. Anybody who is not on the committee as a voting member, their input is certainly welcome, but I think if they have things that they don't like, the place to discuss them is when the committee's recommendation is brought to the full committee, and I would hope that we would have full open discussion at that point. So with that said, I believe we have in chambers Attorney Falk, and if he would like to begin with any kind of presentation that he has, I will give him the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Kerrigan. For the record, Brian Falk from Myrick O'Connell here on behalf of the applicant, VD Naturals LLC. I'm here in the chambers. Joining us remotely, we have our principal, Jigar Patel, Eric Dias from Strong Point Engineering Solutions, Phil Viveros from McMahon Transportation, our traffic consultant, our security advisor, I believe I saw on the screen, Andy Wilder, our business development consultant, Jemin Patel, and our in-house counsel, Ian Hedges. As Councilor Roby stated, we're seeking a special permit for an adult use retail, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, I just heard some feedback. Special permit for an adult use retail cannabis establishment in the Twinborough Crossing Plaza, Route 20 West. We had our public hearing way back in January 27th. Since it has been a while since our public hearing and since the world sort of unraveled during that time, I just want to take a few minutes tonight just to walk you back through our application, just so everybody is up to speed on what we're proposing. So proposed facility would be in 2,400 square feet of existing retail space at the Twinborough Crossing Plaza. This is a little bit smaller than the Garden Remedies facility, which is 3,100 square feet. Like Garden Remedies, this would be a retail-only facility. No cultivation, no manufacturing, no on-site consumption. The plaza has 78 parking spaces on site, and we only need 65 by zoning. Oh, sorry. Is that better, everybody? Great, thank you. So again, 78 parking spaces on site. We only need 65 by zoning, so we're over what the zoning ordinance requires for retail use at the plaza overall. Following our city council hearing, we had a traffic and parking study done. This was done before the pandemic. It was the parking analysis was done back in February, and our traffic analysis is based on numbers from similar facilities from over a year ago. So we didn't do this last week when numbers would have been quite lower because of the pandemic. And we believe our traffic impacts will be minimal and that the parking is sufficient at the site. Between community impact fees and local retail sales taxes, which are 3% each, we estimate that this location will bring approximately $300,000 in revenue each year to the city of Marlborough, with minimal impact on local services. In addition, we expect to have between 6 and 20 employees at the facility, depending upon growth, and we have a local hiring preference in our host community agreement. This is the current draft of our security plan, floor plan of the location. Similar to Garden Remedies, customers would enter through a secure vestibule. Their ID would have been checked at the door, checked again once they get inside the secure lobby. And then, different from Garden Remedies, we actually have a separate secured waiting area in case numbers are high within the retail floor. Once customers are admitted to the retail floor, as you can see, there are cameras throughout the location. One change that we made since our public hearing, based on feedback from counselors and from the police chief, was the additional front door that you see there is currently now labeled emergency exit only. We had originally planned that customers would leave through that door, but we think it's a better approach, what we have now, which is that's just emergency only for code purposes, but customers leaving would go out through the secured area, similar to what you see at Garden Remedies. And just to give you an overview of where we are in terms of our process at the local and state level, we entered a host community agreement with the city back in October. We held a community outreach meeting in November. And since our public hearing, we provided the council with a summary of that outreach meeting. Outreach meeting is something that we're required to do as part of our state license process. It's separate from a city meeting. We submitted our license application to the Cannabis Control Commission in January. We're currently now in our special permit process with the city council. After that, because of the zoning ordinance, even though we're not making changes to the site, we do have to go through site plan review. And we met informally with the site plan committee last week in advance of this meeting. Assuming we get a special permit and site plan approval, we will require a local annual permit from the Board of Health, and then finally our state license from the Cannabis Control Commission. As I mentioned, we met with the site plan committee last week, and we've since received a number of emailed comments from department heads, which we appreciate. I'm happy to go through those issues and start those discussions with the committee tonight. I just wanted to mention also, we provided a draft decision to the council, both a clean and a red line. The red line tracks changes against the Garden Remedy special permit. So you could see the differences, and there aren't many, between what we suggest for conditions and what Garden Remedies has for conditions. Also, earlier today, I submitted an updated traffic report, which has an additional section on site distances, which is something that was raised by the city engineer and the police chief. So with that, happy to take questions and get into the discussion of the staff reports and the draft decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falk. Do any committee members, voting committee members, either in chambers or on virtually, have questions at this point for either Mr. Falk or through him to anybody else that could answer them? Councilor Landers.
Turn his mic on.
I happen to be out there today ordering a couple of jackets, so I happen to cruise the parking lot. How many tenants are going to remain there? I assume the package store will. I think the pet store will. The Stitch This will probably stay there. I think I was surprised. I forgot there was I think it's a dog walking service or a babysitting service for dogs. What am I missing? Is there still a church there?
I don't believe so, no.
I couldn't tell whether it was up or not. So basically, from your diagram and looking at it, I have a pretty good idea where it is. So what my question is, what tenants are staying? Some moving out? And do you know that, Brian?
I don't have the list in front of me. I can get that for you. There are 2 tenants that would be leaving because those are the 2 spaces that we're taking over. I don't recall whether I think they're both currently vacant, actually. The two of them in the corner, perpendicular to Route 20. Those are the two retail spaces that we'll be taking over.
Yeah. I know Mr. C was there, that was a music store, and I wasn't so sure he moved out until I saw him, his new location is down on Maple Street, so it's obvious Mr. C has moved out. And I was just curious, but I was curious about that church. Someone indicated to me that it was still up and praying, but I'm not sure.
No, we can get that for you,
Yeah.
Councilor Landers. I don't know off the top of my head, I apologize.
I'm more curious than anything. I don't think it's a real serious problem, and it's something the landlord has to deal with. Thank you. Thank you, Council Ruby.
Thank you. Anybody else with questions for the attorney or just general questions? Oh, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions, and just want to throw them out there. We can talk about it. First is, I want to talk about the elephant in the room as far as COVID. Okay, what are you guys planning to do? How has that adapted? How are you planning to adapt your business plan to the current pandemic? I'm being serious, okay? We have a time to seriously look at this, okay? Second is basically a lot of the marijuana places are actually by interview, okay? Your basic model was to have a greeting area separated from the rest of the place. That doesn't work well in COVID time, So how are you planning to adapt your business model?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fundamental. I want to hear a response to that, and I don't need it now, okay? But I think that's a serious issue you guys need to come back with, okay? The other impact of that is basically from a building perspective, how the HVAC system works can have a huge impact on the spread of the pandemic. Okay? You guys are putting in new HVAC. Why don't you see what's state-of-the-art? Put in some high-capacity filters that are N95 for the place, and advertise yourself as being very healthy and safe, okay, as an option, okay? And as far as, my concern, which a lot of people talked about, is what happens with when you get large traffics. You're going to get spikes. We're not sure what those spikes will be. There were spikes at Garden Remedies. Okay, you may want to do a traffic study at Garden Remedies to see how they work now. Okay, just because we're different now. Okay, see how that impacts your plan. You may want to consider only doing scheduled visits during peak time. Okay, this is all something that we can put in place temporarily as we address the pandemic. I'm assuming you guys are planning to open in the middle of this. You're not going to put this away. So I want you to I want to understand where you guys are coming for that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will throw out there, in my looking today, I see that on the June 4th Cannabis Commission agenda, that they had actually listed the submission of this application. They have not had a provisional or anything else happen. The Cannabis Commission does not meet again until July 9th and then August 6th and monthly thereafter. So I don't see that portion of this happening very soon. So I don't see them opening very quickly, personally. And so for me, there's not a real rush because of that piece of it. And I guess, for me anyway, putting a burden on a new business because of this pandemic, where we're not putting the same burden on existing businesses, seems a little unfair. I know that they're probably concerned about it also, so I will stop with those comments. The rest of it,
May I
it was
please?
hard for me to hear you. Were you asking them to do a traffic study at Garden
would-
Remedies?
I would actually bring that up and see if the other opinions of the other committee members would be for that. Because I
And
think,
why would we,
Because
When
I think
Garden
that,
Remedies came in, they did a traffic study.
right, but now that Garden Remedies is there, we have something to compare against.
But Garden Remedies has been cleared for removal of the detail because of the lack of traffic and the
Right.
lack of business.
Yeah.
Why would what's happening at Garden Remedy be relevant to?
Because they're both performing the same business models, they'll show the same traffic patterns at different times of the day.
Okay, I believe in the traffic study, they did reference Garden Remedies.
Right.
Information.
But I don't think there's been a traffic study since Garden Remedies has moved in. So the question is, how has Garden Remedies changed the traffic? Now, I'm willing to have that as a discussion get the opinions of the rest of the counselors in all of this. But I do think it's important for them to address COVID, because that's what Garden Remedies already has done. You
All
know,
right.
they had to change their business model to address for COVID. So I see that as being just building into the status quo. You know, there is regulations of how these businesses perform under COVID. That's different than what they had.
That's true, and they are reacting. They were open for business outdoors. I believe they're not back open to business now indoors.
With
I don't-
limited traffic.
Right.
That's, the point is limited traffic.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so members of the committee, voting members of the committee, are you interested in requiring a traffic study done at Garden Remedies? Is there a sense that that's important for this particular business? Anybody? Counselor Landers?
Counselor Roby, quite honestly, I can't see the need for it. You know, things were going pretty well down there before the virus. Of course, it's gonna be a while before they pick up again. But I'm not so sure, really, Counselor Roby, what we're gonna gain by that. Now, don't get me wrong when I say this, but, you know, if we're gonna vote for this and if we're gonna support it, and I know we're eventually entitled to 4 in Marlborough, this would be the second one, revenue, you know, revenue is a factor here. Let's not kid ourselves. And I'm not saying that we push this through fast and we try to get it by Thanksgiving or January 1st or something. But if the feeling, if you get the feeling that the whole council might support this, the second one in the city, I think we ought to help them if it's to benefit the city, you know, to move this along. And as I just said a few seconds ago, let's not kid ourselves. Revenue is part of that. When I look at potentially $300,000 in revenue, you know, the city's going to need that.
Thank you. Any other comments from anybody? Counselor Navin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with what Councilor Landers said regarding the traffic study and some of the comments you've referenced. I think, you know, as Councilor Doucette said, it is a similar business. They will be doing the same business, but it is in a different part of the city, and I imagine there will be different impact to that business. However, seeing that things have calmed down out on the eastern side of the city, I'm not sure the benefit that would come from that. I do think that, you know, the questions of COVID are valid, you know, for all of our businesses and all the things that we're facing. And I would like to, you know, hear, just because, you know, there will be closed rooms and whatnot, and I'm sure that, you know, the business will adapt. If there are things that perhaps the proponent has thought of already, I'm sure it has been weighing on their mind as this has unfolded. And you know, recreational facilities were not part of the, you know, essential businesses that were allowed to remain open. So, I mean, I would be interested if there are any thoughts on just how this has impacted the business model, and, you know, if there are thoughts on how this will kind of proceed if we are, God forbid, coming on a second wave, and what we're going to be looking at in the fall. I'd be interested to hear that, but especially in regards to the traffic study and whatnot, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wagner, if you have no questions, I'm going to let Mr. Patel speak, so I'll let you speak first, Councilor Wagner.
I agree that we, I don't know if you're getting an echo. I don't see the need for an additional traffic study, and I'm looking forward to what's going to be the answer is to COVID, but I think it's really important to just keep it consistent with what businesses are currently doing to minimize the impact of COVID. So there shouldn't be different regulations imposed on this business.
Thank you. So, Mr.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention before we lose sight, and I appreciate the councilor's comments. Our traffic study took into account garden remedies, and it was done, our traffic consultant, Phil Viveros, can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was about 6 months after garden remedies was up and running, was one of the data points, the other being a facility in Uxbridge. That's what our basis of comparison, at a time when those two facilities were among the few that were open in their respective areas. So just wanted to make sure everyone was clear the garden remedies was taken into account when we did our traffic analysis.
Thank you. Mr. Patel, would you like to comment on any of the things that have been brought up? I see you had your hand raised.
Yes, hi, good evening, Chairwoman Roby, council members and committee members. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the feedback so far, and I'm glad to expand on the topic a bit more. Starting with COVID, you know, it changes on a monthly basis, so it's difficult to have a plan right now. We are, you know, aiming for March to June of next year as a potential, you know, commence operations date. And I believe, like, if council wants to, you know, address how exactly we'll approach, you know, COVID, if it's still, you know, depending on how it is at the time, we're happy to, you know, address that at the time. I do want to mention that when we do plan to open, we might be, you know, there might be at least 150 dispensaries in the state, so traffic will be spread out a lot more. And and a few other things, you know, about COVID. You know, we would be doing the same, which is curbside pickup until CCC would give us further assistance or guidance rather. And in the beginning, we're certainly open to having appointment only, especially if you know, COVID is still happening. We'll certainly proceed with appointment only. You know, we'll have all the new HVAC systems, and there'll be an odor control plan with the HVAC system as well.
Thank you.
So I hope that touches on some of those points there.
Thank you. Councillor Ossing, I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a couple of points. You know, the council had no jurisdiction over how Garden Remedies addresses COVID. Neither will we have any jurisdiction on how VD Naturals or any other ones. It's driven by the Board of Health. They will have to satisfy the Board of Health and the Cannabis Control Commission. I mean, we can ask what their plans are, but again, their plans, you know, aren't going to be in place for almost a year. That's one. Two, on the traffic study, contact the police department. I spoke to Chief Georgie. There are no issues with traffic at Garden Remedy. So I would not see the value of a traffic study. I would see it be better spent our time just making sure we understand the traffic study that's presented by the applicant, which, you know, shows what they think the traffic impact's going to be. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ossing. Are there any other comments? Does the committee feel like we want to go in detail through the traffic study? Or do you have enough information just by reading in the comments that were made tonight? Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do have one question about the traffic study. Here it is. The tables that you show as far as the interval times for the location info, they actually show the start date of 2028-17, okay? So, long before. I thought you made a comment about being in April. Oh, sorry, February.
And Councillor Doucette, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing with the masks that are being used in
Okay,
chambers.
I'm
Are
sorry
you
about
having
that.
trouble
I don't think
hearing
it-
in the virtual audience? Is it just me because I don't have the benefit of the microphone? All right.
He sounds good.
Okay.
hear.
I can't, but
Okay, I will try to pronounce my words without the mask. My apologies, Madam Chair. You made a reference in your presentation that the traffic study was done in February. the dates say 2017. Is there a different traffic study?
The parking analysis and then the local trip counts were done in February. Our basis of comparison for similar facilities was from prior to that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Anybody else with specific questions on the traffic study or wish to have any further detail on the traffic study? Nope, seeing none. Does the committee want to begin? I guess I would like to begin with the department head comments before we get to the actual special permit. We received comments from Priscilla Ryder, the conservation officer, who actually had no comments, from Mr. Garside from the Board of Health, who reminds us that there are Board of Health regulations that must be met, and this is actually mentioned in Condition 2, which states that the applicant agrees to abide by all municipal, state, and federal rules and regulations. Chief Georgie from the Police Department did bring up 3 areas: security of the business, the impact on the traffic conditions, and the parking concerns for the property and other tenants. So he did talk about the entry and exit points, which I believe was brought up at the site plan meeting. He talked about the volume of traffic, which he thinks may increase with the business, but doesn't sound like through the traffic study that it might. There were concerns about the site distance. And then lastly, he talks about the parking concerns specifically on the property. And then Mr. Cook, the building commissioner, did have several points that I guess I would like to bring up. I know Attorney Falk, you mentioned in your opening remarks that there are 75 sites, parking on site, and 65 are required. Commissioner Cook states that the accessible parking spaces do not meet the size requirements of 521 CMR. I was not able to reach him. I don't believe he is on the meeting tonight, so do you know what his statement references?
So it's our understanding from the landlord, and again, we're going to be tenants. We don't own the site. So things that we're talking about with respect to the site ends up being a negotiation between us and the landlord, which is perfectly fine. That's part of the drill. But anything we commit to, we have to also get consent from the landlord, or we're not able to comply with the special permit. My understanding is that from the landlord is that the entire parking facility was restriped 4 years ago, repainted for clarity. In terms of not complying with the current accessibility requirements, we're happy to revisit that and clarify it for ourselves. And if that's something that the building commissioner is going to require as part of a building permit or through site plan review, we'll comply with that and work with the landlord on that point. And I think a number of the items that were raised by the city engineer, the police chief, and the building commissioner would be best dealt with through site plan review. That doesn't mean that we don't have a condition in the special permit to require that. That's something that the council has done, many times on site-specific issues that are best left to the site plan committee. We still have a special permit condition that requires that we deal with them through the site plan committee. And again, unlike a site that's not proposing or a use that's not proposing site changes, whether we propose site changes or not, we still have to go through site plan review because this is a cannabis use. So we will be back, not just in an advisory fashion, but formally before site plan to get an approval.
Okay. Additional comments that were on another page that I didn't get to were also, I believe, brought up in site plan. The vegetation that is on Boundary Street, that's a concern for the exiting for people that go that direction, and the play area that was there for a daycare that's no longer in place, and whether that could actually be used again. And then mention of the fire alarm system, which I would assume would be definitely something that's taken up in site plan. Any other committee members have questions or comments on the comments that we got from the department heads? Councilor Landers?
Thank you, Councilor. What I hope, Brian, is between, the tenant and the landlord, the site plan review group, the other tenants in that complex, and the landlord has a new tenant coming in that's probably gonna be there for X number of years, that he would take it upon himself to improve that. And you're not talking megabucks, really. It's, the playground, that area should, I mean, that's a mess, that should be taken care of. Seal coating a parking lot and putting lines in, and so I think between the current tenant and then this tenant possibly coming in, why not have it, a good-looking, business establishment, and let it be an asset to the city that there's another place of business that looks good, looks inviting. So I hope it takes care of itself, but I think it's a certain amount of pressure from the tenants, and then, of course, I think the city, and whether it's Mr. Cook and site plan review and so forth. So I think it can happen, that we'd be pleased how it looks in the long run. Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Councilor Landers. Any other comments? Councilor Doucette?
Thank you, Councilor, Chair, Madam Chair. To follow on with what Councilor Landers says, this store has an opportunity to be an anchor for that plaza. And, it can bring traffic, and there could be other, there's a sub shop, there's a liquor store. They can get a bunch of things without walking very far. So it's a good opportunity for people to make one stop with multiple opportunities. So I agree completely that, making it look good will draw more people into that plaza. So however it gets negotiated between you and the landlord is, I hope that you take into account, at least over time, getting some improvements done.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else with questions, comments about the department heads' comments? Nope. All right, then I think it's time we can start discussion on the special permit. And I think for the benefit of the new counselors, I'm actually going to begin at the beginning of this. Typically, I think the council goes right to conditions, but I think it's important for educational purposes maybe to kind of go through this whole thing. I don't know that we'll have to do it for future special permits, but I do think it's interesting that the finding of facts, the details that are in there, and I know that will be the legal department's job to make sure that all of this is accurate, that this will be referred to them to make sure that the description from the applicant, the address, all of that is actually accurate. Then we have, based on the above, the council makes the following findings and takes the following actions. And it then lists, as was mentioned by Attorney Falk, a lot of this is taken verbatim from the garden remedies, which was our first special permit. I think that it's important to note that all of, they're kind of doing a give and take. They're talking about the, and I guess for me, as a city councilor, to be able to approve a special permit, I look to really the statement that's in Section D. In accordance with 650-32C of the zoning ordinance, the city council hereby determines that any adverse effects of the use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts to the city or the neighborhood in view of the particular characteristics of the site and of the proposal in relation to the site based on consideration of the following. If you agree with that statement, then you should be able to vote yes on this special permit. So they're talking about the benefits or the social, economic, and community needs that are served by the proposal. The traffic flow and the safety, including the parking and the loading, the adequacy of the utilities and other public services, the neighborhood character and social structure, the impact on the environment, the potential fiscal impact, which was already discussed, the hours of operation, which is actually mentioned in condition number 8, and requiring that the contact information be provided to the chief of police, the building commissioner, and the special permit granting authority, which is in condition number 9. They're required to pay a community impact fee. I know we did receive the community the host agreement today. It does discuss that. My understanding is there may be some changes by the legislature. I had asked a question, and I don't know, I do see we have the assistant solicitor. Is a existing host agreement valid even if the legislature changes things, or would that host agreement have to be redone? Mr. Peaks, are you there? Are you willing to answer that question?
I would have to see the proposed legislation itself, but it's my understanding in terms of what we have now that the existing HCH should be valid going forward. But let me see what the legislation says first, I guess.
Okay, because I know in addition to the fees that, or the payment to the city and the taxes that we're going to receive, there was detail about a donation that was going to be made, which is significant, and if that actually can happen, would be wonderful. If not, then I guess we see going forward. Also, they talk about the requiring of the special permit granting authority for annual reports. That's in condition number 10. Requiring regular inspections by the city is condition number 11. And requiring employees to undergo a criminal background or a query check is condition number 12. Requiring surveillance cameras is condition number 6. And prohibiting the sale of anything except what they are allowed to sell is condition number 13. Then we get to the ability for the business to provide all of the things that are indicated in their plan. I do have a question on number 16, the signs and signage, which says the finding is the signage shown on the plans is appropriate for the use, and number 17, the names of the businesses, business logos, symbols are subject to state and federal laws, with the finding that those are shown on the plan. The only plan that I'm aware of is the single sheet. I talked to Mr. DePercio at site plan, nothing else was there. So we in fact don't have anything that shows signage. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I apologize. It's a holdover from the Garden Remedies decision that we didn't update, because you're right, we don't have a plan of signage for you. So we can modify that condition, or we can discuss the issue further. Either is fine.
Okay, do you have signage that you could get to us? You have it designed?
Let me discuss with my client, which is difficult because he's not here, but I can see him, but we could get back to you on that.
Okay, perfect. So then we get to number E, which are the actual conditions of the special permit. And again, I will reference the fact that they need to comply with all applicable laws, so they would need to make sure that they meet that Board of Health regulations in the Board of Health permit. They need to have site plan review. And I guess as I go through these, if anybody has questions, please raise your hand, and I will, Councilor Doucette, if I don't look that way, please let me know. Councilor Landers has more on his side of the room, so, and for those of you on the screen, if you have questions, speak up. So site plan review will have to happen. The incorporation of the submissions, all of this becomes part of this. Compliance with state requirements, including security, which is all detailed in the plans, the processing and odors. There is a statement that there shall be no on-site consumption, and I guess as someone who listened to the public's concerns, both for Garden Remedies and for here and probably everywhere in the state, that term on-site is a little maybe misleading. Is on-site specific to this particular storefront, or is it the whole parking lot, which I'm not sure they have the ability to control? So that's a concern for me with that statement. So I don't know if anybody has a response. Councilor Landers?
It's, you know, it's good that you brought that up, because I did go to the meeting, neighborhood meeting, I think it was last November. I basically went out of curiosity, and that was the concern of some of the present tenants, you know, on site. I mean, you got quite a variety of tenants there, from a package store might not, they certainly wouldn't want their liquor consumed in the parking lot. the convenience store or the dog walking service or even the athletic, the Sitch store. They certainly wouldn't want any consumption on premise, and I think by premise, they would assume it's the whole parking lot. And then, of course, the neighbors wouldn't want anything on Boundary Street. And then, we did have that condo complex there. They were quite adamant that night. And so I think that's important, that we expand upon that, no consumption, on the whole area. And that I think by that we'd mean all the square footage that's on that plot. So somehow, get that there, Brian, that, you don't come out of the store and do whatever you want to do. I mean, you can go to Northborough and do it if you want, but not there. But I think we got to, make sure that's in there somewhere.
And I know it's,
Oh, sorry.
I have a question, Madam Chair. So I'm
Councilor
curious, with that question about premises, what are the current regulations that prevent liquor stores right now from, if somebody goes into a liquor store and buys alcohol, is there a parallel regulation that extends to, other than state, I think state law covers that, right? It's illegal to drink on the road. So can you help me understand how this is different?
I don't think it is, but I do think that it might become, and I guess, I would guess that this same language is in garden remedies. I didn't actually look to compare the red line to this. It's just I know that it will be something that will become a police, or could become a police issue. If people are seeing this consumption on site, where the owner of the business may not have the ability, as an owner, I wouldn't want to go out and tell somebody in a car smoking or eating or consuming that they can't be doing it. It's certainly not safe for them to do that. So how many times will we allow the police to be called on someone doing this before we say maybe it's not a safe? So I'm just throwing it out there. I hear what everybody says, and I know it's the same thing with liquor licenses. I don't think it's ever been an issue for an alcohol store that I'm aware of. I think it might be for these kinds of businesses, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I just was throwing it out there.
Because Councilor Roby, with liquor, it's against the law to have an open container in your car. Now, if you're walking along Route 20, I'm not sure how the law applies to that, but certainly you can't leave a package store and even open a nip or open a can of beer or take a swig of vodka or something. So I think that's obvious. I'm not quite sure how it works on this. But I think I'm thinking of the neighborhood, the other tenants, and somehow you come up with something that, nothing on the premise.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
My view of on-premises means this isn't going to be a cafe. Obviously, we have limited control outside of our own retail operation in terms of what happens once customers leave. It is prohibited to have an open container or to consume in a car. And consumption in public, other than for medical purposes, is also prohibited of cannabis.
Oh, that's right too, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm happy to clarify. I'm a little concerned. We don't want the condition to say, it's a zoning issue for us if there are problems, whether or not there are customers, off the site.
Right, and to me, on-site means within the interior of where they're getting it. What happens when they walk out that door and go to their car or walk down 20, I don't think is your concern. And I guess I was trying to make that distinction and make sure that I'm understanding that distinction. And I believe Councillor Ossing had his hand up and then I'll get to you, Councillor Doucette. Councillor Ossing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've got both permits up, and item 7 on processing of odors is exact word for word from Garden Remedies as it is on BD Naturals.
Thank you. Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The one thing that, as far as you really can't stop the consuming outside, every time I go into a local liquor store to pick up a box of wine, I always see small shot bottles, 1-ounce shot bottles littered on the ground just outside. There's nothing we can do to stop it. It's an issue, but, addiction's an issue as well. So,
Good, then I think we're all clear. I see Mr. Patel has his hand up also. Would you like to make any comments?
Yes, hi, Chairwoman Roby, councilors. I did want to address some of it, starting with on-site consumption. We will have a security agent to address that. We'll try to monitor. There'll be a security room within the establishment that will be keeping an eye on the all the cameras, and if allowed by the landlord, we're hoping to expand security coverage. So that'll give us a little more eyesight on what's happening in the lot itself. Beyond the lot, I mean, obviously it's tougher to control, but we will do our due diligence in the lot to keep that in our best control. All cases of on-site consumption, if any, will have to be reported directly to the chief and Marlborough Police Department. And if that happens, the security agent, it wouldn't be the owner or another agent. It would be always the security agent asking the customer to put the goods back in a bag and to not do it in public, or to just wait on premises until the authorities arrive based on the actual situation. But yeah, otherwise there will never be any consumption of products on premises. We will always promote that and let our consumers know. I also do want to refer back to the signage. We haven't done any signage yet. We're planning on doing that after getting approval on a special permit. We don't want to spend the money on the design and everything until we have local and state level approvals. And otherwise, the signage will meet all the necessary regulations set forth by the CCC and won't display any plants or anything like that.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. So with the signage, maybe we can work on modifying that language if we actually won't have a sign permit, which isn't the council's purview anyway. So, and thank you for your other comments. I will go to number 8, which are the hours. The hours that are proposed in the special permit are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Comments from the council on those hours?
I think they're fine.
Number 9 is contact information. Number 10 are annual reports that are required. 11 is inspections and records. Number 12 is background checks. Number 13 is unrelated materials. Again, the items that they cannot be selling. Number 14 is the police detail, which delineates that an employee of the city of Marlborough will be at the site during all operating hours for the first 60 days after the commencement of operation, unless the chief of police determines in a letter filed with the city council that a police detail is not necessary during certain times of the day. At the end of the 60-day period, if the chief determines in a letter filed with the city council that a police detail is still necessary during all operating hours or at certain times, then the applicant, its successors, or assigned shall continue to employ a City of Marlborough police detail until deemed unnecessary by the chief of police in a letter filed with the city council. In the event a City of Marlborough police detail is not available, the applicant shall provide a private detail. And I believe that language is similar to what was in Garden Remedies, where we received the letter from the chief stating that the detail was no longer needed, and I don't believe has been needed since their 60 days were over. Number 15 is just information about recording the decision. So, going back, are there any other questions, comments, anything that I missed on the actual special permit? Nothing from anybody?
I
Right.
just, Madam Chair, I just want to mention that that's the benefit of having Garden Remedies as a model to follow. You know, I think we've learned a lot from that. It's been a pretty good document, and from my observation, everything's gone pretty good down there, I think. I haven't really seen any problems. I've only been inside once, and that was with a fellow colleague, just to see what it was all about. But from what I see, in talking to different policemen and so forth, you know, it's gone pretty well. I'm always curious, even now, when I come back from the transfer station, I always see how big the crowd is, and I've been known to take a loop in just to see. But, you know, so we have the advantage of what they went through, and they've been a good model, and I think that's why this document that we just kind of went over now is, you know, I think we understand it, and it looks good.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. So hearing nothing from any of the other members of the committee, Mr. Falk, would you be willing to discuss with your client the two issues, 16 and 17, with signage?
Yes.
Signage, come back with new language. We can continue this discussion at another meeting where, considering I'm not seeing a whole lot of negativity on any of the special permit, we could finish this up.
Absolutely.
Does that work for the committee members? We can ask him to take a look at those two things. I guess there's nothing else that anybody has issues with that they would like changed, added, amended. Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. No, I agree that this is in great shape. I think the issues as far as signage are minor. You know, the framework that was put in place with the other dispensary, I think, is shown itself to be very effective and easily used and reused. You know, the traffic and parking is fine as far as how it goes. We'll just see how it goes. And I appreciate the comments of Mr. Patel as far as, you know, how they plan to be effective, but how they plan to take into account the COVID. The other is finding out that you guys are opening March and June of next year. So it's good to understand, at least in the time frame, what you guys were expecting. So I appreciate that bit of information. So, but yeah, if no one else has anything to say, motion to postpone, or,
Motion to postpone.
yes.
Yep.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And
Any discussion?
Oops. Councillor Ossing, I take it you have discussion.
I do. So no issues with the postpone, but I just want to remind the Urban Affairs Committee that this deadline to act on this permit is July 21st.
Oh, thank you. You did, I have a note right on my paper that I stuck away from me. I did have drafted from our trustee aide to make a request to Mr. Falk and the petitioner to extend this to August 25th at 10 o'clock, just in case.
Okay.
If you are willing to do that, I can report that out at the July 20th meeting. We currently had the extension through July 21st, just in case.
And Jigger, I assume that's okay.
Madam Chair?
Councillor Ossing?
Again, I don't know how the applicant will address the two signage issues, but if they get you information prior to our July 20th meeting, the Urban Affairs, at your discretion, could take it up. I mean, that's up to the applicant to see what they want to do.
I'm sorry, I was listening to Mr. Kerrigan. Can you repeat that for my benefit, at least the end?
I'll address Mr. Kerrigan later. The ability, if the applicant comes back next week with, hey, here's how we're going to address the signs, you have in your discretion the opportunity to schedule another Urban Affairs meeting to take that up if it meets your satisfaction. You don't have to wait till July 20th to then set a meeting for sometime in August.
Correct, but I believe this would have to be referred to the solicitor, and I guess I don't see a need to rush this. So even if I could have another Urban Affairs meeting and be able to report this out on July 20th, at that point, I would refer to the solicitor to make sure it's in proper form with the intent to vote on it at August meeting. So I would respectfully request the extension.
No, absolutely, no, you need the extension, otherwise we'll end up having a permit get approved without our approval.
Right, and I know that there may be some concerns because of the governor's order that the extension may not really be necessary because we have the ability to extend this. I would just like to be safe and have it for our records, to have it all done the way we would normally do it. So with that in mind, if there's no objection from the Attorney Falk or Mr. Patel,
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, I'm fine with the extension.
thank you, and hopefully we will be able to get this done then at our August meeting and not have to have a further extension. Cross your fingers. And Councilor
Very well.
Doucette, did you have comment? I'm sorry? There is a motion. There was discussion on the motion, I guess, okay. So we have a motion. Is there further discussion? All right. Then would you like to withdraw your motion to
Yes,
postpone?
I will withdraw my motion and make a motion to postpone. Actually, motion to set just the time.
To
Extension.
agree to extend time limitations to August 25th at 10
Okay.
o'clock.
Yes. So extend time to August
25,
25 at 10 o'clock, 10 PM?
10 PM. So it's been moved and seconded to extend
My sister's
the
birthday.
time limitations to August 25th at 10 o'clock by this committee. We will bring that recommendation to the full committee at the July meeting. Is there discussion on the extension? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Oh, and I do need to make a roll call vote from Mr. Kerrigan stating, because we do have somebody on virtual. So with a roll call vote, Counselor Landers,
Councilor Landis votes yes.
Counselor Doucette,
Counselor Doucette votes yes.
Counselor Naven,
Counselor Naven votes yes.
and Counselor Wagner.
Counselor Wagner votes yes.
Thank you. Now, Counselor Doucette, would you like to make your...
Motion to postpone order number 2019-10078881.
It's been moved to postpone until our next meeting, which at this point is not set. Is there discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, and I will do a roll call. Counselor Landers,
Councilor Landis votes yes.
Counselor Doucette,
Counselor Doucette votes yes.
Counselor Naven,
Counselor Naven votes yes.
and Counselor Wagner.
Counselor Wagner votes yes.
And that is, and Counselor Roby votes yes. I'm sorry, I didn't vote on the other one. I'm sorry, I will count myself as voting yes. I got so excited about the roll call. So with the postponement, I think that our agenda is completed for now. I will set another
Motion
meeting.
to adjourn?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. I will do a roll call vote. Counselor Landers,
Councilor Landis votes yes.
Counselor Doucette,
Counselor Doucette votes yes.
Counselor Naven,
Counselor Naven votes yes.
Counselor Wagner,
Counselor Wagner votes yes.
and Counselor Roby votes yes. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.